Does God want a separation of church and state? Should Christians be voting biblical principles? Does it really matter who you vote for? Join Pastor Jerry Cook as he endeavors to answer these and many other questions over the next hour on Politics in the Pulpit. And now, Pastor Jerry Cook.
Good afternoon and welcome to Politics and the Pulpit here on your hometown station, 98.1 and AM 1220. It's been 2 weeks since you've last heard your holy host, the Bishop of Santa Clarita. I hope you all had a great Christmas, a wonderful and safe New Year. Here we are now in the 8th day of 2025. And if you live here in Southern California, it is apocalyptic, to say the least. We will, a little bit later on the program, be giving a little bit of an update on some of the wildfires that are raging all across the Southern California area. The Eaton Fire, which is just to my east. Then you've got the Hearst Fire, which is just over our hill here in Sylmar, and the Pacific Palisades Fire, which of course is the biggest of these fires at the moment. There's obviously a lot of electrical systems that are out, houses that are out of electricity, evacuation orders that are still in place. The good thing, in terms of if there is any good word here, is that the winds seem to be subsiding and will be completely gone by this evening. So, folks out there, say a good prayer to folks out there, as a lot of folks have lost homes, lost businesses, lost livelihoods, and so not a great way to start the new year for some of our Southern California neighbors here. However, if there's one thing that has been highlighted over the last 24 hours is, again, the fecklessness of those in leadership. And what's interesting is these fires were predicted several days before they occurred. In fact, the language that was used was almost apocalyptic. And you would think that something that is predictable is also preventable. And a lot of policies that should have been put in place were not. And so one of the things that we need to do here in the state of California is change the direction of not only the one political party that is in control of our city and our state, but try to strengthen the other party, the Republican Party, even more strengthened than it has been in the last couple of months. In fact, I really think we need new leadership within the Republican Party, specifically within the California GOP. Our guest today is former State Senator Mike Morrell. Mike is no stranger to our show. He's been on a couple of times. And State Senator Mike Morrell is running to be the new California Republican Party chairman. Senator Morrell, welcome to Politics and the Pulpit.
Hey, Pastor Jerry Cook, thank you for having me on.
It is
so
me.
Much.
I'm assuming no fires out in Rancho Cucamonga, correct?
You are correct. We have a lot of wind. We have 100-year-old plus, this used to be an orange grove, so we have some orange trees, and one of them is huge and over 100 years old. And it's just like it snapped at the very base.
Wow.
The wind just snapped it right off. And then our neighbor, their block wall fence actually blew down. How does a block wall fence? The homes are 40 years old, so maybe But anyway, yeah. So our electricity's off, but that's okay. No fire, so we're happy, and we figured out. I bought a generator a few months ago, and we figured out how to work it now. So
I know that I-15 corridor between the Cajon Pass and the base there where you guys live, that is quite a wind funnel. There's no doubt. I remember years ago coming through there doing a really big windstorm and seeing semi trucks and their trailers completely blown over.
Yeah. The way that El Cajon Pass is, because we've lived here, when the cold air hits that desert air, it creates those winds that come from the east and heads to the west, and it's like a funnel, as you said, and it comes through there. And a lot of times we're kind of up closer to the mountains to the right of that. So usually we don't get this kind of wind like Fontana does and other parts of Rancho. But man, this time it just, some of our neighbors, their roofs blew off. And so we've never had wind like this here. But yeah, just, the other side is things can be replaced. People, lives can't. So, we're grateful and taking it just a day at a time, just cleaning up things today. But other than that, it was crazy last night.
Well, if you're just joining us today on Politics in the Pulpit, we're talking to former State Senator Mike Morrell. He is running to be the new California Republican Party chairman. Senator Morrell, the current leadership is Jessica Patterson, and Jessica has served the party and the state of California for the last several years, and her term is up this coming March. What is your assessment of Jessica Patterson's leadership in the California GOP, and why do you think you are better positioned to take the party in a different direction?
Well, let me just give you a little bit of my resume, because people ask, what are you going to do? And, of course, we can say anything. I'm going to part the Red Sea and buy Greenland, right? What have I done? So I did start 2 corporations here in California. I started one in Arizona, and they were all profitable. So I've got that business background and been on the boards of Building Industry Association, sat on a board of the UC Riverside School of Business. Hillsdale College, I was president of the Parents Association and helped that school go from a retention rate, student rate of 73 to 93%. Then I currently stepped down from the board of the Arizona Christian University so I could run for the seat. So I've had, business background, being on boards. And then, of course, Sacramento, I had 10 years up there. And then where people are not normal. So, you got to see the other side of the aisle, so to speak. And I finished up there as a state senator. So I've had experience on fundraising. So I've done my resume, I think, Lord willing, is built for this. My experience that coming into this, I've had more than some other chairs that have ran the party. So hopefully that'll lead to some wins. And I think some of the things I can do, I'll put it in a sports analogy. I used to love Joe Namath. So those 50-yard passes. But the one that's really impressive as a metaphor for life was Joe Montana, who won 3 Super Bowls, but he just passed those 3 to 5-yard passes, and he just had a high percentage of those. And so I think we can move the ball down the field. I think a good percentage of it, there's things that we can do to actually secure wins and again, make our party better. And then there's some big ticket items we want to go after too. So some of the little things that I don't think our party has capitalized on, we've got about 270 Republican clubs between the Republican Women Federated, between the California Assembly parties, and I spoke to the Golden State Republican Women last night. So, I've asked a number of the presidents of these clubs, has our party ever contacted you and asked for your help? And the answer has been consistently 100% no, 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 and no. And so a lot of these people, they want to change our state. And so one of the things is I want to be able to have sort of regular Zoom meetings to work with these presidents of these clubs and see if we can, cooperate together. And one of the things that we need to get really good at to win elections is communication. And so right now we have basically just a handful of people, the head of the party, Jessica Patterson, you mentioned, the head of the Senate and the Assembly, who are sort of communicating via Facebook and that sort of thing. But if we can get out of 270 clubs, if we get half of them also having like a media department as well as writing op-eds in their particular districts, I mean, we can spread that message. And our message is one that's winnable. In other words, it goes across like taken a page from Governor Glenn Youngkin's playbook from who won in a blue state governor a few years ago. He had three things he campaigned on. They're all great. They reach across Democratic and lines and demographics is what I meant to say, and economic lines. And one is the economy. As Bill Clinton's campaign manager once said, it's always about the economy, and that was one of the number one reasons Trump won. So we can make a case why we should be Trump instead of Trump-proofing California, we should be Gavin-proofing California for some of his bad economic decisions, and the deficit that we have right now is just tremendous. And so then we have businesses leaving, as you know, citizens are leaving. And I mean, our economic base, they're taking billions of dollars out of the state because of poor government. So that's one thing we can win on. The second thing is look at crime. When you and I were growing up, neighborhoods was safe. We could play baseball on the streets, ride our bikes across town. Today it's not like that. And I don't care whether you're rich or you're poor or you're somewhere in between. We want safe neighborhoods for our children and our children's children. So we cannot have, remember Governor Newsom was for Prop 47. It says, you can steal anything under $900 and you're not going to be going to jail. And you saw these criminals, 50, 100 of them breaking in the stores at one time and raiding those stores. That's lawlessness. And so Proposition 36 passed overwhelmingly. I think it was 76% of the population. And so people want safe neighborhoods. We got to be tough on criminals. And so that's another win that we can say that the Democrats don't have. But we have to get that message out. And then the third thing is look at, we're seeing something that has never happened in history as far as I know, at least since I've been alive. We are seeing what I call a grassroots movement or a we the people movement of parents of all shapes and sizes and races and economic factors returning to school board meetings saying, we don't want our kids to be indoctrinated. We don't want California to be a sanctuary state so our third graders can be transitioned. I mean, they still have to dream and grow up. And, when I was in the third grade, I wanted to be a gardener at one time. I wanted to work in orange groves because we lived near orange groves. And then, you change in high school. We got to give these kids a chance to dream and figure out who they are. It shouldn't be transitioning to them. That's horrible. And so parents are tired of this indoctrination, which, by the way, our daughter used to teach at Arizona Christian as a political science professor, and she reminds me, says, it isn't just about the immorality. The immorality is bad, but she told me, she said, Dad, much of modern education today is laced with a Marxist rhetoric designed to separate that child from the parent and make that child a ward of the state, as they've done in communist China and the Soviet Union. And so parents want education. They don't want indoctrination. They want their kids to learn. And so those are three issues right there that I think we can just capitalize on if we clearly communicate. And just my last example, and then I'll let you talk. Sorry. But remember, the great communicator was Ronald Reagan, who won 49 out of 50 states. And so that's why we have to get better at that. You can say the same thing with Sir Winston Churchill, who had his 7 wilderness years but came back to save Europe, and it was all about how well he communicated. And the same thing about the Lincoln-Douglas debates and how famous those things were and what a great communicator Lincoln was. And so history favors those people who are bold and brave and who speak out on those issues. So there's just a lot of things we can do to move that ball down the field. And I'll just stop for right now, and you can ask some more questions, and I apologize.
We were talking to former State Senator Mike Morrell, who is running to be the new California Republican Party chairman here. And one of the things I want to ask you, Mike, is one of the keys to President Trump winning re-election in 2024 was in the voter registration drive that happened in Arizona, Pennsylvania, and several other key states, specifically those 7 states, those 7 swing states that he won all 7. What would be your process should you be the new California GOP party chairman What would you do to kind of pick up on the re-engaging voter registration here in California? Because we obviously need more. I mean, obviously we have more Republicans in the state than just about any other state, but that's because we have such a large state by population. But we don't have enough Republicans that are really just voting and getting engaged, not just on a federal level, but on a state and local level. How will the voter registration pick up with you should you win?
Well, a couple of things. That's a great question. It's very timely too, because of course that's got to be one of the key platforms that we initiate if I get elected. Because remember, elections are all about numbers, right? I talk to some of these candidates and I'll ask them, how many are in your voters are in your district? Well, I don't know. Well, you better figure that out because you're going to have to get 50% plus one. So numbers, it's just a numbers game. But so Joni and I got invited to Turning Point USA headquarters in Arizona just about 2 weeks ago, right? A couple of days before AmFest.
Yep.
And so we went, I call it this, I don't know if Charlie Kirk calls it that, but his war room on how they registered. I could remember, I'm going by memory, so I could be off, but I think they registered like 800,000 voters in Arizona. And I saw the war room, how it was set up. So the first thing I would do is so impressive, so very impressive. I would take a page out of that playbook and run the same drills as what Turning Point did, because they were able to, like I say, register quite a bit of people, and they did it with a lot of college students, right? And then the second thing is look at one of the largest registrations are people like, decline the state or no party preference. Who are those people? I believe they're people that are not infatuated with the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. But we need to reach out to those people specifically and re-engage them, tell them what we believe and why we want them to participate. And remember, there's another thing, too, about registering. I would love to see every Republican club where they take a little bit of ownership in that. And I think they're willing to do that. And if each club, not just the party, the Cal GOP registering people, because that's a statewide thing, which takes a lot of money. And, yes, we want to do that. But I think we can get clubs doing that, too. And that's one of their responsibilities. If we can do that, they're going to build their parties. Because what I want to do is help the Republican clubs build their membership. And one way is, I think there's a number of ways we can do that by engaging some of these. I want you
to keep that thought for the other side of the break, Mike. We're coming up to a hard break. When we come back, we'll continue talking to State Senator Mike Morrell, who's running to be the new California Republican Party chairman. We'll ask him a little bit about some of the competitors also that are running for this same seat. On the other side of the break here on Politics in the Pulpit on your hometown station. Back here for our second installment of Politics in the Pulpit here at the bottom of the hour. Again, encourage you folks out there to be mindful of the weather and, of course, all the wildfires that are burning about us, many of them to our south. We are glad to welcome back former State Senator Mike Morrell. Mike is running to be the new California Republican Party chairman. Before the break, we were talking about party registration and what some of the local GOP parties can do to kind of register voters, as opposed to having the Cal GOP doing that, which, of course, does cost a lot of money. But what I wanted to ask you, Mike, is you're not the only person that is running to be the new California Republican Party chairman. The current party's vice chair, Corinne Rankin, has also thrown in her hat in the ring. And, the great Ronald Reagan had his 11th commandment, which says, "Thou shalt not speak ill of another Republican." And so I'm not going to ask you to speak ill of her, but what I would ask you to do is to simply distinguish yourself from Corinne Rankin. Why would Senator Mike Morrell be the choice and maybe not Corinne Rankin? How would you distinguish yourself?
Well, that's a good way to word that. Thank you very much. Yeah, at the beginning of the show, I kind of mentioned, I've opened 3 companies, and so I've been fortunate to do that. I don't think she's done that. I've sat on different boards of organizations, and when I look up her resume, compared to mine, I've had a lot of experience in politics, faith, being involved with starting ministries in Southern California. I have one ministry that got started that's been going on for 31 years. And then being involved on boards associated with business, like the Building Industry Association. So I've had a lot of experience there. And then, I was in Sacramento for 10 years as an elected. I don't think she's been elected to anything, which doesn't mean that's bad. It just means I have more experience, in the trenches, right? And then during those 10 years, fundraising is very important. I had to dial for dollars, and I got real disciplined at doing that. It can be hard, but I noticed that the first 15 minutes is always the hardest, and then you get in a rhythm. So it's all about kind of discipline. And I've had 10 years of that, which is 10 years more than she's had. But here's another thing, too. And I think this is fair to say. She has mentioned what she's going to do, for the party. Here's the things we need to do. This is the direction we have to go. And this has been brought up by just a great number of people who have pointed this out to me. And they said, well, how come she hasn't done those things since she's been vice chair of the party for the last, I think, 5 or 6 years? That's a good question. That's a fair question to ask her, I think. In other words, the things that she said she wants to do, why hasn't she done it? So when you look at performance on, I guess, my resume versus hers, I do like my resume because I've had a lot of practical experience on doing things to run big organizations, and I've done that. I'm able to help identify the key leading factors and indicators of what it takes to run an organization and a business, and so I've just got a lot of good experience in those areas that I think I can move that ball down the court further than any of my competitors.
Well, I hope that I'm going to be able to ask Corinne those questions next week. We've been trying to reach out to her and get her on to Politics in the Pulpit. So, Lord willing, I'll be able to ask her some of those questions. Let me also ask you this.
By the way, real quick, ask her where she stands on DEI and questions like that.
Oh, I definitely will. I've got a list of questions that someone gave me that I feel like would probably be the same questions that you would ask her as well, Senator Morrell. So let me ask you this as well. I've known you for a few years now. I know that you're a man of faith, and I wanted to know how prominent a role your Christian faith would play into your infusing your faith, if you will, into this position of being the California Republican Party chairman. How important would that role of faith be?
Well, George Washington, the father of our country, in his farewell speech, the most important thing he says, and he makes sure that he makes it the most prominent part of his speech. As he closes out his years of success, he says, of all the habits and dispositions which lead to political prosperity, morality and religion are indispensable sports. If you look at Lincoln, the same thing that he says in his second inaugural address and his first and his farewell or not his farewell address, but he said, blessed only are those nations whose God is the Lord. And so I think the thing is, it does play an obviously factor. One of the reasons I want to run, the reason I've done everything I've done, whether it's been business or politics, stems from a scripture from Proverbs, from Solomon, the wise king, who said that the duty of a father is to leave an inheritance to his children's children. So that has been, I guess, my life goal, in every move I make, or almost every move, has always been centered around that, about what's my duty to my children. And then that expanded sort of the vision that, hey, I got to get involved with God, country, and family, and economic issues, to be able to provide that for them. And so it is going to guide. But also, I want to go back to one of the most important things is standing on those constitutional principles, which are guided. Lincoln said that if you had a picture of a solid gold apple, that apple would be the Declaration of Independence. And if you had a solid gold frame protecting that apple, the Declaration, it would be the Constitution. So the Declaration of Independence is the foundation. And so second paragraph begins, we hold these truths to be self-evident. And so how do you find the key to truth in the world of moral relativism? You go back to the first paragraph, and it talks about the laws of nature and nature is God, which comes from a book that John Locke wrote on the natural law. And what it means is you can find self-evident truth by looking at history or human nature, because at the end of the day, the God of nature writes the divine law on every person's heart and conscience. And so the thing is from a standpoint of faith, that of course plays a part, but the standing on those constitutional principles and what's written in the Declaration of Independence and how do we lead our country in those self-evident truths, I'm going to stand on those things too, which has made our country the greatest nation in all of human history. So I want to restore those political principles, which contains things from the divine law, and that's one of the many reasons why we succeeded in America. So, I'll stand on those things.
Well,
and by the way, I'm ready to listen to anyone, but that'll be the things that guides my decisions.
I think one of the most discouraging things for Republicans right now in the state of California is to look around at the one-party rule in this state, and it's been one-party rule for quite a long time. And as we're looking at these fires that are happening, not just the fires that are currently burning, but the fires that we've had in our state for the last, let's say, decade, much of those fires, like the Paradise Fire from a few years ago, a lot of these fires were predictable, but therefore could have also been preventable with proper brush clearance and better management of our forestry, and just better management overall. Do you think, Senator Mike Morrell, that Californians across party lines are going to finally get it, that what is happening in Pacific Palisades, what is happening with the Hearst Fire, with the Eaton Fire, and with all these horrible fires we've had that have scorched the earth and cleaned out businesses and burned down homes, do you think they're finally connecting that with bad policy?
Well, I hope they are. That's starting to come out in the news. But not only that, take it another step. I've met with a good number of farmers over this past year. Talk to them, where they're only able to use 40% of the water that they typically use, and what a threat that is to our national security and our food supply. I mean, it's evil. The year before last, when we had all that rain, I read an article that our dams are full. We were supposed to build that Sites Dam years ago. They gave us that land, that family, and it's been 40 years, and we still haven't built a dam there. Anyway, our dams got full. They were starting to overflow, so they released, I understand, enough water to provide into the Pacific Ocean, in the salt water, right, where it's useless after that, to provide. They released enough water to provide for 17 million homes for their water for 1 year. And so, we need water storage. Let me tell you, Romans chapter 1 is an interesting chapter, right, about people who go contrary to the laws of nature or go contrary to those self-evident truths. And they live, they're foolish. Their thinking is darkened, and they become foolish. And these things that our governor's doing, water. Again, farmers. You talk about the fire. I was reading in the paper today. Don't know, if it's fake news, if it's for real. But out by the L.A. area towards the beach where those fires were burning, that some fire hydrants, they couldn't get water out of them. I don't know.
That is absolutely right. I have a clip that we're going to play a little bit later of Rick Caruso, who ran for mayor of Los Angeles, but of course lost to Karen Bass. He actually mentioned that. In fact, Gavin Newsom refused to sign the Water Restoration Declaration because of the Delta smelt, and of course that is a carryover from Jerry Brown. But Newsom could have restored that, but I really believe that is contributing to the reservoirs being down, and some of those fire hydrants not having sufficient water, or any water for that matter, for these fire departments to put out these fires in a timely manner. Senator Mike Morrell, let me ask you. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Hey, the Delta smelt, from my understanding, what I've learned when I was in Sacramento, they're not natural to there.
No, they're not indigenous. No, I believe they're invasive. And what's interesting about California, everything that's invasive, they try to kill, right? I mean, we have wild hogs. We have wild hogs. They tried to do that in Santa Catalina and Santa Rosa Islands. And, you know, they went over there and just killed them all. But yet when it comes to something like the smelt in our drinking water, for some reason now it's become indigenous and not invasive. So, Senator Mike Morrell, you wrote a book not too long ago called The Road to Restoring the Family. You kind of mentioned a little bit of that earlier. Can you give us a quick word about your book and how people might be able to get it?
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for that plug. You know, God, country, and family. I was thinking, what does our country need? And so I started writing letters to my kids. They're grown, right? But I have grandkids now. What are the things, the virtues that they need in their life to raise their families well in a very difficult culture that wants to turn them in 180 degrees away from God, right? And so one of the things I wrote was why gratitude is really important. And I thought about, you know, Moses and how the people grumbled. So God says, hey, I'm just going to let you wander for 40 years, and I don't want my family doing that. So I wrote a chapter on why gratitude's good. I wrote a chapter on what does education look like. It's molding together not just the intellect, but the intellect with the soul, rightly ordered, right?
Yeah.
And so I did a chapter on that, and then I did a chapter on a father's duty to leave, freedom. What does good government look like? So anyway, I wrote this book, and I had about 12 chapters in there, one on prayer, one on marriage, those types of things, how to raise your kids. And I was going to send off a chapter to them once a month so they could read it. Well, Joni, my wife, started reading those things, and she says, I think you need to turn this into a book, you know. So I sent it to a printer. They put it together in a book. I sent it to a publisher, and it published. And so because restoring the family is one of the things. If you have a strong family, you're going to have a strong nation. And I was talking to a gentleman who's an assistant warden at a prison out in San Bernardino County, and he told me 91% of his young men incarcerated there come from fatherless homes. So the statistics are overwhelming. Strong family will result in a strong nation. And the next thing I want to say, I've spoken at well over 100 places on my book, your church at one of them. And here's something. That book, I probably have learned more from that book than what people, you know, have, because people talk to me after I'm done speaking. And one of the things, and I mean, I know this, I knew this past tense, I know it now, you know it, but I mean, it has glared me in the face since I wrote this book. And the thing that I've learned is our young men are being emasculated here in the United States of America.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And you know what? Proper leadership, I think, is going to be something that is going to be able to stop that type of emasculation of our young people, specifically our young men. Senator Mike Morrell, good luck to you.
And Amazon, by the way, they go to Amazon. Forgot the most important thing.
Amazon.com, The Road to Restoring the Family.
Restoring the Family. Thank you.
Now, Senator Mike Morrell, I believe I will see you up in Sacramento in the month of March, and that is where...
I believe so, too.
That is where the rubber is going to meet the road. So I've got a few things in development with myself when it comes to the state of California, and when those things finally come to fruition, I'll give you a call and let you know what my position is going to be. But the fact of the matter is, I'm hoping, Senator Morrell, that you become the new California Republican Party chairman. I think it would be great to have your leadership, sir.
Yeah, and if your folks could keep that in prayer, because one last thing I'll say, I appreciate your help, and also, I mean, I'm going against the machine. I'm going against the establishment, and so it's it's like 3-on-1.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
the way
And
I would
so
look at
I
this,
need,
the way I would look at this is Pastor Cook says that State Senator Mike Morrell is the grassroots choice for the California
that's
Party chair. So, Senator Morrell, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, if you want to get his book, it's on Amazon.com, The Road to Restoring the Family. And Senator Morrell, we'll see you in the month of March.
I appreciate it, Pastor Cook. Thank you very much for
You
the
stay
interview.
safe out there. Thank you, sir. When we come back here, we'll have a few things to say about the ongoing fires that are happening here in Southern California, including some really sane words from a man that could have been the mayor of our city here in Los Angeles, but unfortunately is not. And we'll hear back from him in just a few moments here on Politics in the Pulpit on your hometown station. All right, we're back here for our final segment on Politics in the Pulpit here on your hometown station. This is your holy host, Pastor Jerry Cook. Wanted to give you a quick shameless plug. We are on Rumble, for those of you that love that social platform. We call that the free speech platform. However, Meta just came out the other day, Mark Zuckerberg, and said we are going to become a free speech platform as well. So it's amazing how the Trump effect is kind of changing the culture as we know it. Who knows? We might have Greenland and Panama Canal and all kinds of things in the Americas. We're changing the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, so that's pretty interesting. So I know that probably triggers some people out there, but it is what it is. So check us out on Rumble, Politics and the Pulpit. All of the shows there are ad-free, so you get all Pastor Cook all of the time. So I encourage you to get over there and give us a like and share those shows out. So obviously we are on fire watch here in Southern California. We technically are all the time. We've not had very much rain this winter. It's not been a very cold winter, to be completely honest with you, as well. And it looks like for the foreseeable future, we don't have any rain. A couple of years ago, I was loosely affiliated with the campaign of Rick Caruso. He is a Republican who turned Democrat, who's probably more of a middle-of-the-road Democrat / moderate Republican, and obviously was the better choice between him and Karen Bass, who, of course, is our current mayor in Los Angeles, who, by the way, has not been here for the last several days. She's been in Africa as the fires have been raging here all over Southern California, specifically in her district. Rick Caruso was on Channel 11 News yesterday, or either yesterday or this morning, and gave a sobering analysis, a common sense analysis of some of the preventative measures that could have been taken ahead of these fires. So here's what Rick Caruso said.
But their hands have been tied, and they can't fight a fire without water and the resources that are needed. Everybody knew these winds were coming. The other question has to be, were all the things in place to try to, again, mitigate the damage here? But the real issue to me is twofold. We've had decades to go remove the brush in these hills that spread so quickly. And the second is you got to have water. And my understanding is the reservoir was not refilled in time and in a timely manner to keep the hydrants going. So that's a failure, whether on DWP's part or another city agency. But this is basic stuff. This isn't high science here. And it's all about leadership and management that we're seeing a failure of. And all of these residents are paying the ultimate price for that.
That was going to be my next question, is why isn't there water in the fire hydrants? That doesn't make any sense.
You're right. That's a good question. And I think you should start asking, why don't you call the mayor who's out of the country and ask her and get an answer from her?
Well, they say she's on her way back, and that would be a great question to ask her tomorrow if she's at this briefing at 8 o'clock in the morning, because I think there's a lot of people that are outraged by that fact tonight when they look at scenes like this, at businesses that people have worked really, really, really hard to build, and homes that people's entire livelihoods are going up in flames tonight. So for you, watching this and seeing those flames
Well, that seems like real common sense. If there's a lot of brush, let's get it cleared out. Donald Trump tweeted this out on his Truth Social. He said, quote, Governor Gavin Newsom, that's how he puts it, refused to sign the water restoration declaration put before him that would have allowed millions of gallons of water from excess rain and snow melt from the north to flow daily into many parts of California, including the areas that are currently burning in a virtually apocalyptic way. He, Gavin, wanted to protect an essentially worthless fish called a smelt by giving it less water. It didn't work, but don't care about the people of California. Now the ultimate price is being paid. I will demand that this incompetent governor allow beautiful, clean, fresh water to flow into California. He is to blame for this. On top of it all, no water for fire hydrants, nor firefighting planes, a true disaster. And of course, Rick Caruso, a Democrat, echoes much of those same sentiments as well. Folks, all I can tell you is this. At some point, Californians of all political stripes need to just kind of wake up and say, you know what? We hired people to manage this state. And all they're doing, and all they seem to be doing, is managing the decline of our state. I don't want our state managed in that fashion. And I know we're a single-party state. I mean, that we have a supermajority still up in Sacramento. It's been Democrat in California for a very long time. We haven't had a Republican mayor in Los Angeles since Richard Riordan, and that's been 2 decades now. We haven't had a Republican governor since Arnold Schwarzenegger, and that would be Republican lowercase r, not a big R Republican at all, especially definitely not his second term. And the people that are lining up to be governor of California, it's a who's who in the Democratic cadre. So I don't know why in the world even Democrats would line up to put more Democrats in charge of our decline here in the state of California. I want California to be the golden state. And if a Democrat can do it, great. But a Democrat hasn't been able to. So maybe we ought to just kind of, just say to ourselves, let's give it a try. Let's give a Republican a try and just see what happens. I know somebody that's probably getting close to about to announce their race, and hopefully we can get them on the air in short order if that is going to happen here pretty soon. But we need new leadership in the governor's office. We need new leadership when it comes to the insurance commissioner, folks. You're talking about insurance business here in California. Think about all these folks that have lost their homes and properties and businesses. We've got insurance companies fleeing California, and it's not going to get any better, folks. And we need a complete clean out of the swamp in the state of California. Well, listen, folks, you guys stay safe out there. And again, do your best, folks. Stay at home. Eat out less. Save money, whatever the case might be. But next week, we're going to have Jennifer Horn with The Morning Answer, AM 870. And she'll be joining us, and we'll be talking a little bit about the current environment here in California and also the possibility for a new governor and perhaps a new direction for the state of California. This is Pastor Jerry Cook saying thank you for tuning in to Politics of the Pulpit here on your hometown station. You guys stay safe out there. We'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.